welcome to The Drop Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Holt, and today we've got a lot of exciting topics to be talking about. A lot of roller coaster news, good, bad. We're going to be talking about it, who knows. And then, of course, we're having a discussion in the back half of this podcast about all the stuff coming up in 2022. It's more of like an extension of the discussion that we had last week. So if you didn't catch last week's podcast episode where we talked about all of the fun stuff coming in 2022 for the theme parks, definitely go check that out. We had a lot of fun doing that. But this week, we're kind of extending that discussion a bit and asking some questions about some of the things that, we want to see. Maybe, hopefully, this will happen, that sort of thing. But before we dive into any of these topics or those questions, let me introduce to you the co-host for today. Sean, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm glad that you're here today. I'm glad that we are doing this podcast.
No, so am I. I'm excited. I really am. It's been we've been chatting a lot up to the actual recording of this podcast for those at home, but it's all been really fun conversations.
Fun discussions. Yeah.
It's been a good time.
It's just been like, I feel like this podcast is just going to be a natural extension of that conversation. So it'll be good. It'll be good. But right off the top, like I said, we have some roller coaster news to talk about this week. And the first one is about Revenge of the Mummy. Fan favorite, and honestly, personally, my own favorite in the park, Revenge of the Mummy is set to close in just a few days. On Friday, January 7th, the ride, which opened in 2004, will go down for its first extended refurbishment. Although we don't have an exact reopening date, Universal Orlando has claimed that it will return at the end of summer 2022. Recent permits that were filed in Orange County reveal that work will include control and electrical systems upgrades, as well as exterior and courtyard improvements. These permits are set to expire on June 7th. With little details being revealed and an expiration date for June 7th for the permits, what are your thoughts on the refurbishment and reopening timeframe of Revenge of the Mummy?
You know what? I feel like, I don't know. I don't want it to go down because it's my favorite attraction.
It's so good.
It's magic. I grew up literally going to Universal Orlando, and that was always the one attraction I was the most excited for.
Yeah.
It's been there for so long. The queue, everything about it is just so nostalgic. It's just a fantastic ride, everything about it. Even, I think my memories of the movie scenes you see in the queue, and then of course there's obviously a lot of, I guess, I don't think there's any true scenes that are perfectly copied that are represented in the ride per se, but
the ride's kind of its own story actually.
From it, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I will say it's so reminiscent of the films, which take me back to my childhood, which is there's just so much nostalgia, and it's a really but to answer your question, I'm glad to know that I guess if there has to be a time this makes sense. They're coming off of their busy season.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably their busiest season of the year. Their busiest season of the year, to then go into this weird winter time that people are still visiting, but it's nowhere near as much as the summer or the Christmas time.
Yeah.
And so to come back in May, I think that you said May, or I'm sorry, late summer.
Well, yeah, they said specifically late summer. Well, unspecifically, they said late summer.
Late summer, yeah.
So, yeah.
So then, it makes sense. They're gonna, I'm assuming, come back right as the crowds come back. Hopefully,
hopefully,
as long as everything kind of works out, behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I still don't want it to go down though.
Yeah.
I don't have plans to go there anytime soon. I just don't want it to go down. I might go now, though, knowing it's
I'm
go
actually
down.
trying to go on Thursday.
Are you
the day before
actually?
that it closes? So, specifically because
do it,
I have to do it one last time. Yeah.
And they don't. Do we know what are the actual? It's just they've not revealed details of what actually is happening, correct?
They haven't revealed specific details, but there are quite a bit of rumors. So personally, agree with you. I don't want the Mummy to close.
No.
Thankfully, it is just a refurbishment, so it will reopen. The question is, in what iteration? Like, how much of it are they going to change? And there are... I'll talk about the rumors in just a second, but there are quite a bit of different rumors swirling around about what is going to happen with the ride. But I just want to give my thoughts real quick on like the specific information that we do have. You pointed out that it's like right at the end of the busy season, so this is like the perfect time for it to go down. If one of their main attractions is to shut down, this would be the time to do it. Which is clearly their thinking, because Disney's doing the same thing with Everest.
Yeah.
Everest is down. We talked about that a few weeks ago on the show. So it went down for a big refurbishment. That one is only supposed to take, I think, 3 months, though. This is going to take somewhere more around like 6 or 7 months. But the time frame does make a lot of sense, and this probably is the time frame. It's only going to miss, if I'm correct, it's only going to miss one big event, or actually no, it's going to miss 2 big events for studios, which obviously Mardi Gras, which was the one that I was thinking about, and then the one that just popped in the top of my head. It'll also be down for Rock the Universe, which is interesting because I actually don't know. Have they announced anything for Rock the Universe?
I've not seen anything for it, but I can't say I follow that event super closely, but I don't believe I've seen anything for it now.
Interesting. Yeah, so for me, I actually do follow that event pretty closely because I do like Rock the Universe, and I was talking to someone who works like show production at Universal, and we were talking about Rock the Universe recently, and he was saying that it was on, but I don't actually remember seeing any details about it. But
like any promotional details.
Yeah, any promotional details. But anyways, like if it does happen or it doesn't, the Mummy will be closed for that. And then Mardi Gras, which definitely is happening, it'll be closed for that too. But there's no like big season really that it'll be closed for as soon as summer hits. Well, actually, it might be closed the majority of summer. It says that it's going to be closed until the end of summer. So actually, yeah, this ride actually might be closed during some big portions of the year. It's going to miss spring break. It's going to miss summer, the majority of it at least. But thankfully, it'll be here for like HHN and the holidays and stuff. Some of the other big stuff. But yeah, so that time frame is interesting. Like, it makes sense that it's closing now, but it is strange that it's going to be going on for so long. The permits are good until June 7th. So that points to at least end of May, early June, this ride should reopen, unless, of course, Universal could always refile for an extension on those permits. But as of right now, I think it's really interesting though that those permits expire specifically June 7th, because that means obviously that this ride can't stay closed any longer than that, which is good. But because of that date, a lot of these rumors, which we can start talking about, we can kind of see that some of these rumors either may happen, may not happen. We've known for quite some time now that the Mummy was going to go down, and it was going to go down for a pretty extensive refurbishment. But we haven't known for what yet. And one of the big rumors is that it's going to get a whole retrack. So that basically they're going to rip out the entire roller coaster and then rebuild it with new pieces the same exact way that it's built now. And from the people that I have heard that have an insight into these things, they have said that if they go down that route, it would actually take more than their projected 6 months. Instead, it'll take about a year. So they weren't sure if they were going to do that. Based off of these reports, Universal's staying firm to the fact that it's going to open end of summer 2022. But then also the permits being to June, also kind of seems like maybe that's a route that they're not going. Maybe they're not going to retrack the whole thing. But these permits are also specifically for electrical systems and ride control systems, upgrading those. And then for the exterior, it just says general exterior and courtyard improvements. It doesn't say really anything about
the ride
itself. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not drawing any firm conclusions, but it kind of makes me wonder if this full retrack that we've been hearing about for months now, if that's actually going to happen, or if they're just going to do like a general maintenance refurbishment on it. Another big rumor that I actually do tend to believe is true, as much as I hate it, is that they're going to be removing any theming elements that are referencing Brendan Fraser and his series of The Mummy. I've heard quite a few rumors, mainly coming from very credible source Alicia Stella. If you don't follow her, you definitely should. She's amazing. Theme Park Stop, one of my favorite podcasts. But she has been saying pretty adamantly that she's expecting all of those references to be removed, and
like Tom Cruise-y kind of.
Well, so we haven't heard anything about that, but what I'm assuming is that it's going to be more generic, because obviously the Tom Cruise movie didn't perform as well as they thought, and the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies are still more fan beloved, but they're dated.
They are.
So instead of choosing one or the other, I've heard that, or what I'm assuming, based on what I've heard, is that it's just going to be more of a generic Mummy styled ride.
So to build off of what you're saying, at Universal Hollywood, that's kind of how it is. So that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if
there's no theming to the movie at all.
Yeah.
Right? So that actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to...
That makes me sad.
It does,
but it
right?
Makes sense, though.
Okay, we need to take bets or like wagers on how long do you think, if they do get rid of that section, especially the portion at the end with the cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I would have enjoyed this interview a lot more if I'd gotten my cup of coffee.
And then,
how long do you think, if they do get rid of that, how long into the future do you think when that ride finishes, you'll still hear fans quote that?
Forever.
You think forever?
I think for a long time.
You don't think it'll ever die out?
It'll probably die at some point, obviously, because everything, unfortunately, does die.
People will be like, what are you talking about, man?
But it'll go on for quite some time. I don't know. It's so sad. I don't want it to... That everything you're saying makes sense. I can't help but think, too, because... So, if they did the ride retracking, they did that with the Hulk, did they not?
They did that with the Hulk,
and how long did that take? Obviously, it's a much different coaster.
It took about a year.
So it took a long time. I don't know. I obviously... I don't know the current state of the attraction as far as, the safety and whatever else, and the actual physical, I guess, state that the tracks are in.
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm not an expert in that regard, but I don't know if it needs to be repaired and maintenanced. I get that as well. I don't know. It makes me sad. I don't want them to just change it completely. I feel like that would just be really just heartbreaking for me.
It would.
I know I keep saying that. I just it's weird to think that they would do that, because I literally grew up with that ride that way. But it's the Great Movie Ride. It's some of the other rides. It has to happen at some point. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think personally, if I was to guess and put money on the table now about what I think we're going to see, I think we're going to see a lot of the queue improve. So I think we might see more of an extension of, how there's the behind the scenes stuff, and then you wander further into the queue, and then it becomes the super themed, you're in an Egyptian temple kind of thing. I would assume that we might get an extension of that where that becomes more of the queue, maybe less studio stuff, because the big section of the queue that dove into the making of the Mummy movies, where it's like you're on set, because so a lot of the story of the Mummy has been lost over the years. The main story of the ride, which, by the way, if you're curious to know about some of the history of the Mummy, not just about opening day and all that, and like when it opened, what it replaced, and all that sort of stuff, but you actually want to know the story behind the Mummy, like what is the lore and mythology of the ride, the Unofficial Universal podcast did a fantastic episode interviewing someone who worked there opening day. Like, they opened the attraction, and he ended up, I think he wrote a book about it or something, but they did a great interview. I'll link that down below in the show notes and the description of this podcast or video, however you're watching, because I do highly recommend it. But essentially, like just a very condensed version of that is you're actually on set. The reason why, like you brought up, that this ride doesn't really reference any scenes from the movie is because this ride is actually, you're not in Egypt, you're not in a temple, you're on set, and they're filming the next Mummy movie. Obviously, the next Mummy movie that, like, you know, we never saw it because it's just a fictional sequel. But they're filming the next Mummy, and you're on set, and something goes wrong, you know, like, so there's this curse.
It's a trap.
Yeah, right. It's a trap. But there's this curse on set, and if you want to protect yourself, you have to have the Magi symbol on you. And the issue is that Brendan Fraser doesn't believe in the curse or the Magi symbol or whatever. So all he's trying to do is get a cup of coffee for this interview that they're doing about the making of the movie, and the person at the crafts table says you can't get it unless you're wearing the symbol, and he refuses to put the symbol on. So he sends like a PA, like a production assistant, to go get it for him. And the production assistant, since he doesn't have the thing, ends up getting captured by the Mummy, which is the dude at the beginning of the ride.
Oh my god!
Who's like, "Are you insane? Get out of here! The curse, it's real." He's the production assistant. And
he's supposed to be getting the coffee.
He's supposed to be getting the cup of coffee. Yeah. But of course he gets captured by the Mummy. And at the end, because he got captured, Brendan Fraser never got the cup of coffee. So he's like, I would have enjoyed this interview a lot more.
Had a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I did not in my whole life up until this very moment.
You didn't know that. See, no one actually knows that, and that's why I'm saying that I think a lot of the queue of this ride, you should listen to that podcast. It's a really good podcast. I can't believe
that's the real story.
That's the real story.
So bizarre. That makes no sense. That's wild.
Yeah. That's why that queue like randomly transitions from like backstage to like now you're in Egypt. Yeah. It's like you're actually supposed to be like on a set or something. So interesting. It's just weird. But because the queue for that ride never gets that long where it fills up into the extended queue, and even if it did, right now they demolished a whole bunch of that extended queue in order to make room for the tribute store. So every big event that they have this big tribute store at the parks, and that space is available because it used to be the old extended queue for the Mummy. Mummy never gets that long of a queue anymore, so they didn't need it, so they demolished it and made the tribute store.
Wow.
But that area is where a lot of that story got told. Now the only real area that has that story for the ride, like that interview, like backstory of the ride, is in literally just that first section where you walk in and there's like that small little switchback, and it splits off between, you know, standby, single rider, and like the Premier or whatever, the Express Pass. Sorry, I don't know why I called it Premier, but the Express. That one little area is the only area that kind of has that pre-show video playing, and it's just there's not enough time there to experience the whole thing and catch the story of it. So I feel like what we're going to get is I feel like they are going to drop all the Brendan Fraser stuff, because as classic as it is and as iconic as it is for fans to be able to scream those lines and all that, I feel like it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of people, like you were even just saying, like you love this ride, it's so nostalgic, but like that tied in, like there's that so connection didn't happen. Yeah,
there's so many gaps.
Yeah, I feel like if they're going to get rid of it and they're going to redo that opening scene where it's like, are you insane? Get out of here. The curse, it's real. They might retheme it, like reword it. It's going to be the same thing, I think. The mummy has someone and the dude's screaming, but like maybe like the dialogue, I think they're going to change that.
No, I could see that.
The queue, they'll just extend it to be less like behind the scenes and more like, no, you're just at Egypt, like you're in an Egyptian temple, like that's what it is. And so they might extend that theming a little bit into that main room. And then I think mechanically, I don't think we're going to get a whole ride retrack because there's just not enough time for it. So I don't think we're going to see a retrack, but I think we are going to see a complete, I think they're going to get rid of all of the technology that's attached to the tracks. So the launch mechanisms and the braking systems, I think we're going to see brand new launch and brakes. We might get new cars for the ride. I'm not expecting that, but that's definitely a possibility. But I definitely think that there's one of the big issues with that ride is the few times it stops. It has always been abrupt, but it is even more rough, like than it was just a few years ago. Like it just keeps getting more and more rough. And a lot of the transition scene, like the transitions between the scenes, because they just try to rush like as many cars through there to increase capacity as much as possible. A lot of like these audio tracks end up like
they're out of sync, kind of.
Yeah, they like loop over each other. You know, like as you're riding into the second room, you hear the loop of, are you insane? Get out of here. As you're pulling into the second room, you hear it trigger again.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I feel like they'll work on those transitions a little bit. Maybe do some soundproofing or rewrite that dialogue so that there isn't really dialogue in that scene. Maybe.
Yeah.
Just to make these transitions a little bit more smooth. Like I said, I feel like for those parts where you stop, I feel like we're going to get like new braking systems, so it's not like a hard like hit. I think it'll like slow you down. But honestly, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be much to this. We just got new. So last year it went down for a short refurbishment. It wasn't an extended refurbishment, but in that we got new audio and new projection systems. So especially like that turntable room, we got new projections. I feel like we're going to get more of that. So I feel like maybe in that dark area, like the dark section of the ride, like the actual roller coaster section, we might get some updated like flashing stuff. Maybe some where the bugs are, maybe better projection in there, maybe better projection in that secondary room where, you actually have the projection of the mummy on there.
I want to like ride the ride now as we talk about.
Yeah, right. Like we got to. Let's do it. But yeah, I think ultimately we'll see some projection updates, and that's about it. I don't really know what they'll do with that first room, like the first scene. In terms of dialogue, but there's going to be some changes. I don't know what they're going to do at the very end, right before unload with the cup of coffee scene. I don't know what they're going to do there, but there's going to be changes. I hope they don't just cut the video and not touch it, because it would be weird to like pull up into there and it just be a dark black room and you're waiting to unload. So they've got to do something, but I think
it's literally like a split and you just kind of wait, like, and then when it's your turn, of course. I mean, granted, there's a lot of ride attractions like that, but it is weird because you have this massive screen and like the flashing, and then it like kind of comes to that. It's like there should be more, but if there's not, I could see that being weird.
Yeah. It's like the screen is enough in that, like that one little video that they play is enough, but if you get rid of it, it's not. Like that room's just going to be a little empty. I don't know. But I think they're just going to make it a generic mummy ride.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes it is kind of sad.
It is very sad. It makes, like, the more I'm thinking about it, it does make sense though. It does. I could see it.
Yeah, and I
don't want to see it, but I can see it.
Yeah. they're in the process, like the movie side of Universal is in the process of figuring out their dark universe. They're in the process of figuring out their monster shared cinematic universe thing. And I feel like ultimately they're not going to want to make that new Mummy continuity. I think they're going to just like retcon it and like start over.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to not like stick to that version and make everything like the Tom Cruise Mummy,
which like that they're not even that they canceled that series, did they not? They were supposed to do another movie and it,
I actually don't know. They had a bunch of other movies planned because they kind of like set that one up to be like
the
to
first
set up
of many.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they were trying to specifically like set up a bunch of those series, and then it just like never happened. It all just kind of fell apart. So I don't know I don't think they know what they're doing with that franchise, and I don't think that they want to pigeonhole themselves in with a ride, like the ride or whatever, and then have to redo the ride again in a year or two. So it all makes sense. But the point of that is, if you haven't ridden the Mummy and you want to catch this version, or if you love the ride and you want to catch it one last time, definitely get out there before Friday. I know that's not a whole lot of notice. I think this is probably coming out on like Thursday. So get out there tomorrow, something like that. Because at the end of Friday, it's closing, unfortunately. But of course, like I said, I am going to be there on Thursday. So keep your eyes out. We're going to have a farewell video, a vlog that I'm doing in the parks. We're riding the ride. I'm giving you my thoughts, my experiences, what I'm looking forward to, what I'm expecting. We're going to kind of dive into more of that in that video, in that vlog from the parks. We're going to do it in Universal. So keep your eyes out for that video. It's going to be a lot of fun. But before we move on to the next topic, go down into the comments and let us know what your thoughts are on the Mummy closing. Do you think it's about time that it has refurbishment done to it? Are you excited for it? Are you kind of sad that some things are changing? What do you think is going to change? Let us know all of that down below in the comments, and let's get a conversation going. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. The next topic is another piece of roller coaster news, and that is this. SeaWorld Orlando finally broke radio silence this week on the opening day for their new premier rides Skyrocket coaster named IceBreaker. With the pandemic continuing to push back opening dates for rides across the board, the wait is now nearly over for IceBreaker, as its new opening date is confirmed to be February 18th, just over 1 month away. However, if you're a loyal pass holder to the parks, the wait is even less. Pass holder previews will begin with Platinum Pass members on January 30th and 31st. After that, Gold members will have a preview from February 1st through February 6th. Then Silver Pass members on February 7th through the 13th. And finally, Bronze members and Fun Card holders will also receive a preview on February 14th through 15th. What are your thoughts on this coaster finally opening? I mean, this ride, we've been watching this thing be built. Like, I think it was announced in like 2018, early 2019. We watched all the way through 2019 this thing getting built. 2020, it just kind of sat there until the end, and then the end of 2020 they started building it again, and it finished construction like right at the end of 2020, the beginning of 2021, and it's just been sitting there for like now like a year or more. And we finally have not just an opening month, not just an opening season, we have an actual opening date and officially confirmed preview dates as well. What do you think on it about it finally opening?
Yeah, I feel like it's about time, but at the same time, I feel that way about so many attractions. It's just been such a rough last few years. I don't know. It's interesting. Like today, I was today when we're us recording this, I had kind of discussed in other channels the news of that as of the beginning of 2022, like, and this is remarkably unrelated, so please forgive me, my tangent, but like Disney's Magical Express, like that ended January 1st, and now they've got Mirror's Connection or something, and
another one is opening as well.
One, but you have to pay for them, whereas Disney's Magical Express, it was free. And if you like look at the actual pricing, like, it's kind of wild in comparison. And not to go even farther down this tangent, but the fact of the matter is, this happened because of COVID. It was a way to cut costs, and unfortunately, it's just one of so many things in the theme park industry that have just been either cut or postponed or pushed back and
or changed in some sort.
And it just, this unfortunately is just another victim to so many like so many other things in the theme park industry. And I'm happy it's still happening, and there's still excitement, and it's still gonna happen. Granted, yes, it probably should have happened much sooner, but I don't know. It's weird. Everything is so strange right now. Like, there's, I believe certain Broadway productions, they're actually going on hiatus until like March.
Really?
Yeah, of this year, because of like
a resurgence
of like COVID cases. And so it's crazy, actually, if you think about it, because this attraction is now opening during like what you could argue is like the peak of the resurgence in at least Central Florida. So like, just given the recent numbers here, and so it almost seems like bad timing again, and it's weird. Like,
don't say that. Don't postpone it again.
I'm like knocking on two innings, but it's just like, it's true. Like, am I wrong? Like, it's just everything is just so it's unfortunate, because the last 2 years have just been so weird, and now we're going into this really unknown, weird time.
Into the unknown.
But it's like, no more. Like, and so
we've had enough.
We've had enough. It's exciting that SeaWorld is still opening this attraction, and it brings me like hope of like this better, happier, less sicker future. But at the same time, I can't help but like just be hung up on what is happening around me. That's all.
Yeah, I think it was like right at the same time that they made this announcement, I saw the SeaWorld company, not just SeaWorld Orlando, but the SeaWorld company try to spin this as SeaWorld's going to have the biggest, best year ever. They're opening more coasters this year than any other year in its history. And they try to spin it as like, they're opening, I think it's like 6 coasters or something like that.
Are they actually?
Because, they've got...
At all the SeaWorlds? Or?
Like all the SeaWorld owned parks collectively.
Yeah.
So, SeaWorld Orlando's getting 6 coasters.
6? I don't think so,
No, so they've got IceBreaker, and then they've got Iron Gwazi, and then they've got Empress, and then they've got Pantheon, which we've talked about all these at one point, except for I don't think we've talked about Empress. Empress is basically a copy of SheiKra, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love SheiKra.
It was such a good ride.
Yeah, it is.
And then there's like a few others. I think there's...
I just say whenever I go to Busch Gardens, I ride SheiKra.
Oh, you have to.
I wait however long it is. Fantastic.
You go in part for SheiKra. It's one of the best. I still think that I like SheiKra more than Valravn, which Valravn is the dive coaster at Cedar Point.
Okay.
And I think to this day, I think one is about to beat it, or it might have already beaten it. I don't know if it's open or not, but at least when I rode it, it was the tallest dive coaster in the world. At the Valravn at Cedar Point was the tallest dive coaster in the world, and it also had like the most inversions on a dive coaster. It was like the tallest, longest, and had the most inversions or something like that. And I got off it, and I was like, that was a good ride. I think I like SheiKra more.
SheiKra is the one.
Yeah, well, it's the theming of it, I guess. Like, it's more of like a scenic ride.
Yeah.
Like it's in one of the more scenic areas of the park. And I don't know, there's something about when you go over to the barbecue restaurant, being able to smell all the barbecue. Yeah. Like, I just love it. You don't get any barbecue at Valravn. Come on, guys. But you do get to see Dave's. If you know, you know. You do. It's right next to Dave's, and that's like the perfect stop for like you need a drink. Go to Dave's.
Go to Dave's.
Yeah. Anyways.
Drink at Dave's.
Drink at Dave's. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I don't know how we got off on that topic.
No, of
but
course,
one last fact about SheiKra, by the way. It was the world's first dive coaster that was genuinely actually a vertical drop.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it was the second built in the world. But the very first one built was at, I believe it was Alton Towers in England. But it has an 89-degree drop. Yeah. And this was the first genuinely 90-degree drop.
Yeah.
I believe in the world.
I'm like, it's now that we're talking about it, I'm like getting the sensation of like that experience you feel like.
Oh yeah, like in your stomach. There's like, it's almost impossible to not scream.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, it's insane. There's a funny story of that ride, though, when it first opened that I heard an engineer of the ride talk about. And it was also the first B&M dive coaster to have, like, those water fins. Like, that was something that Busch Gardens developed with them. And it has now become, like, a staple of those rides. You know, like the dive coaster going through the water and spraying up the water. That's, like, become a icon of the B&M dive coasters, but that started with SheiKra at Busch Gardens. And when they first did it, it was theming, but two, it was also a practical way to slow the coaster down. It was like an extra brake system without having to have brakes on the ride. But when they made the fin for it, it was so much like that coaster went so fast through it that they said that there were people getting off the Serengeti Express, like, which, if you know the park, there's SheiKra, but then the Serengeti Express is like on the other side of the pathway. It's a huge path. Like, it is easily like 300 feet from like the beginning of that. Yeah,
of the actual decline or whatever. Yeah.
It's probably like 150 feet or whatever from when it stops scooping water, but still. So it's like 150 to 300 feet away. And people getting off the Serengeti Express were getting soaked because SheiKra was shooting so much water out of there that it was flying across the pathway and hitting the train on the other side.
I believe it.
And so they had to re-engineer the scoop to be less powerful because people just were getting demolished. Like, they said there's a time where a lady had to go to health services because the water hit her so hard that it's like knocked her off her feet.
That's crazy.
And so they had, like, they said that there were like 5 or 6 iterations of
that
of the system, to like slow it down to give us a cool water effect, but also not hurt anyone.
It still splashes you as you walk past. Like, if you're close to it, you know.
Well, yeah, it's designed to splash you. Like, you're supposed to get wet with it, but you're not supposed to get demolished. Anyways, just a cool story to tell about SheiKra. But let's get off that tangent. We're talking about IceBreaker. But yeah, no, I just thought it was funny that SeaWorld tried to like spin this as like, it's going to be our biggest, best year ever. It's like, no, this should have opened in 2019 or 2020.
Yeah.
Should have opened in 2020. It's not going to be your biggest, best year ever. You're just making up for all the crap that you gave us over the last 2 years. So, like, time to pony up and finally open the rides is what is happening. It is a shame, you know, the events of 2020 and even a lot of 2021. 2021, we saw a lot open from the stuff that should have opened. Back in 2020, like, we saw a lot of it open, but there's still a handful of things, and specifically at the SeaWorld company, being SeaWorld Orlando and Busch Gardens Tampa, there's a lot of stuff that just like it should have opened. Like, crowds have been back to the parks. Like, there was really no excuse for them to not open it. And this is just one of those rides. So I'm glad that it's finally opening. We talked a lot about it in last week's podcast, where Trisha and I were talking specifically about like the ride, where it's located, and just who it's targeting. And I think that this is going to be the perfect ride for the park. It's like the perfect addition because it's like that next step, you know, like they have like the kiddie coasters and they have the big coasters for the young adults and the adrenaline junkies, but they don't really have anything in the middle. And this is like that perfect next step coaster, I think. It doesn't have any inversions, but it has a lot of thrill factor because it features multiple launches. It has a backwards launch, it has a forwards launch. So I think it goes forwards first, and then it goes backwards, and then it goes forwards again, and then it completely. Yeah, I don't know. It's
a lot of movement.
It's a lot of movement on this ride. But so it's going to be thrilling for sure. It's going to have some speed. I think it hits. I think they said 56 miles an hour or something like that. It's just under 60, and so it's got speed. It's got some fun elements. There should be a lot of airtime on it. But yeah, it's not going to be anything crazy. So I think it's going to be like that good. If you rode the little coaster in Sesame Street, and that was okay, but you don't want to ride Kraken.
Yeah.
So IceBreaker might be a really good like stepping stone. And that's something that park doesn't have a whole lot of, if anything at all. So I think it's the perfect ride. I'm glad that it's opening. I actually, I'm a bad theme park podcast host because I didn't look into this. But I know originally they had this, you had to visit the park 3 times. Like this is what they said when they announced that they were going to do early previews of it. You had to visit the park 3 times before the end of December 2021 in order to do it. But what they announced seemed like as long as you had a pass, we're dividing it up into these days, like the days that I read off, and if you have a pass you can go. So I'm gonna have to do some more research on that. When I figure that out or hear more about it, I will definitely let you guys know. But because I went twice before December, so I didn't quite make that 3 to like regardless of however whatever. But if they scrapped that and just went with, well, if you have a pass, I do have a gold pass, so that means between February 1st and 6th, I'll be able to experience it. And if I can, I'm definitely going to be there, and I'm definitely going to try to experience it. I will film a vlog.
You're going to break the ice.
I'm going to break the ice on IceBreaker. Yeah. Somewhere between February 1st and February 6th, I am breaking the ice.
You're breaking the ice.
But yeah, no, I'll definitely give my thoughts and opinions. I'll be honest, it's a ride that I am excited for because of what I just said. It's the perfect fit for SeaWorld, but it's not a ride that I just cannot wait for. It's not Guardians of the Galaxy.
No.
It is not Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens.
It's not like Velocicoaster.
It's not like Velocicoaster or Hagrid's or whatever. But I would put it more along the lines of like Tigris, which is made by the same company. It's a premier ride. And so, I would put it along the kind of like same excitement level as Tigris. Busch Gardens needed a ride like Tigris. It fit the bill, but was it something that I was like super hyped for? No. But when I went to the park after it had opened, like I didn't drive 2 hours for opening day for Tigris. But when I was there, was I excited to ride it? Yeah. Did I have a good time on it? Yeah, it's an all right ride.
It did the job.
Yeah, and I feel like that's going to be the same thing for IceBreaker, But the question, guys, is for you. What do you think about IceBreaker? Are you excited? Are you excited that it is finally opening up? Are you going to venture out of your way to go to SeaWorld? I don't want to make SeaWorld sound like a bad park. SeaWorld's a great park. I love SeaWorld. But are you going to like specifically make the effort to get to SeaWorld?
Yes. Specifically for this attraction.
I do need to clarify. I love SeaWorld. I didn't mean to phrase it in a horrible manner. But let us know what you guys think down below. I would love to know just kind of like just the general excitement level that people have for this ride. I feel like, when a movie comes out and it has like a trailer and it starts its marketing cycle and then it gets pushed for whatever reason, whether it's production issues, they need to do reshoots, or like a pandemic hits, like that never happens, and then that movie has to get pushed, and then like a year later you start seeing trailers for that movie again and you're like, wait a second, that movie never came out? I could have sworn that movie came out like last year. I feel like that's the overall reaction to IceBreaker right now.
Experience,
It's like, wait, that hasn't opened yet? So I'm curious to know just like what the general opinion is. But anyways, moving on to things that should have opened, but haven't opened, but are now opening. This is our next topic. After being closed for nearly 2 years, Disney's Typhoon Lagoon reopened to the public on January 2nd, 2022. The park originally saw its closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic that hit back in March of 2020. With Typhoon Lagoon, a park that opened in 1999, now officially back in operation, this brings all of the Walt Disney World theme parks back to public guests to enjoy. Sean, let me know, I want to know a little bit about your thoughts on the park in general, if you've been there and just kind of like what you think about it. But also the big topic of this story is now finally, since March of 2020, almost 2 years ago, it was like what, 22 months ago, now officially every single park that Disney owns is finally reopened. So I want to hear your thoughts on this. So
Disney's Typhoon Lagoon is a fun park. I'm not like a super duper water park person. However, I know it's like one of the highest rated water parks in the world.
Yeah.
It's like remarkably well renowned for just being this exceptional place. I mean, I think it's fun. I think it's great. I love the attractions there. I think on a side note, I think after experiencing like H2O Glow nights, you can kind of like, which you can do like the whole park in like 3 hours.
It's a small park.
And so I think for that reason, I know personally, I've got actually a few very close friends who are obsessed with this water park.
Really?
And so I don't want to like put it down, but I think it's just, it's not designed to be the main attraction of Walt Disney World. It's
an extra add-on.
It's an extra add-on that is still very premiumly well kept and well themed, and it's got a lot of Disney magic to it. I think it's unfortunate that it's been closed for so long. I know some people who have been so sad that because of its closure. But as far as though regarding your second question, my thoughts on just the fact that it's been, you said 22 months since all the Walt Disney World parks have finally reopened. I mean, it's so crazy because it's just insane, that whole thought process, I guess. I don't know. I was actually talking about this in a post I was doing earlier today. And it was like back essentially to what we kind of talked about, but all the changes that came about with COVID, and one of those things was like the theme park reservation system, like, that premiered here at Walt Disney World, and then Disneyland was closed for so long, like they couldn't even get it.
They couldn't even
open because nothing was open. And then after I think over a year, Disneyland was closed for.
Yeah, it was like 14 months or something like that.
Yeah, and then it finally reopens with that.
Yeah, they said when they closed the gate, there's that funny video where they were like, "We can't wait to see you in 2 weeks, guys." And then like
literally
not 14 days. It was 14 months.
Yeah, and so it's. But so I guess like it was because of COVID, like they implemented the reservation system, and then that slowly, of course, came to Disneyland because of the fact that it was so behind in just reopening. They couldn't even get it opened. Like that in itself was so hard. So to be honest, I mean, it feels like we're still going in the motions. Like it doesn't actually seem that crazy, the idea that this is 22 months in the making. And I shouldn't even be laughing because it's so sad, but it's just, it seems on par with how everything else has been. It doesn't actually seem that outlandish to me, considering everything that has happened and all the changes that have made. And the special accommodations that have had to come because of this situation.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's wild. I never thought that theme park would be closed for so long, especially given the fact that so many other parks have reopened so much sooner. I mean, look at Universal Orlando. That was opened in like 3 months.
Yeah.
You know, and so then compare that to 22. It is a wild compare. It's wild to look at those two side by side. Of course, they're remarkably different, obviously.
Yeah.
But the idea being a Central Florida theme park, water park, whatever, I don't know. It's just, it makes sense to me. But it is like, it's mind-boggling, but it also, I'm not that surprised, actually, that it's been 22 months. If you really look at everything that's happened, it actually doesn't seem that crazy.
Yeah, you know, I've been trying to be careful to not compare it too much to Universal, right? Who is this guy? I'm normally the guy that compares Disney to Universal all the time. But in this instance, I actually just kind of want to like temper myself and like not compare too much. I think it's easy to compare this situation to Universal because, you know, Volcano Bay reopened and Volcano Bay's directly competing with Typhoon Lagoon. But it is a little bit different of a story. You know, I think, you know, I could be wrong, but I think in terms of actual size, Volcano Bay is a little smaller.
I don't know.
I think that Volcano Bay, from my personal experience, is more of like a full experience, where Typhoon Lagoon feels like it was meant to be like an add-on.
Yeah.
You know, like if you've been vacationing there for 2 weeks and you've spent 10 days at the parks and you want to like experience some other stuff, this is like the perfect thing where you sleep in for a day, you go to the water park for a little bit, you spend a few hours, you spend the 3-4 hours that it takes to do everything. You spend the few hours that it takes.
With good lines.
Yeah. If it's crazy busy, then it might, obviously. And then, so you spend your day, you relax, you do the stuff, and at the end of the day, you go to Disney Springs, you know, and then you go to the hotel. And like, that is how the water parks fit into your Disney experience. With that being said, I think it's a little different. Like Disney's scenario is a little different to compare to than Universal's, because as much as I love Universal and as much as I think Universal has enough to warrant its own vacation the way that people vacation at Disney World, like it has enough to make a 3-4 day vacation out of. Disney genuinely does have enough to make a 7, 8, 9, 10 day vacation out of if you want to do everything. They just genuinely have a lot more at Walt Disney World, even though Universal is a great vacation destination. And I genuinely believe that if you go to Universal with the intention of vacationing there and you stay on property and you stay, you know, like you stay at one of their hotels, you go to City Walk, you experience the parks, the 3 parks that they have, the 2 normal parks, and then Volcano Bay, their water park. They have enough as is right now to warrant a multiple day vacation. They just don't do it at the scale as Disney World. And Disney has really been struggling with their workforce lately. And a lot of that I have been very critical of, because the way that I feel like, sorry if I'm stumbling over my words, I'm trying to say this very carefully.
Watch out.
Watch out. No, not because I'm afraid of like a company to like whatever, but because I genuinely care about
what you're saying,
what I'm saying,
and perceived. Yeah.
Yes, because I love both parks and I don't want to throw shade at either park. But ultimately, the way Universal handled the pandemic and their employment of their employees, although it wasn't perfect, it was done a lot more graciously and a lot more I don't want to say humane, but like you understand what I'm saying. Like
maybe efficiently.
With the best intention of their employees in mind. And they really fought to keep on as many people as possible, and they really fought to set themselves up for better success because Universal was smart about it, and they knew that they can't do business without their employees. It doesn't matter how high level or low level they are. You know, you can't sell turkey legs if you don't have someone selling your turkey legs. You know, like you can't manage, like you can't have a hotel if there's no one there to manage it. It doesn't matter if you're like on a big management scale or if you're sweeping
the floors,
you know, like. And Universal understood that, and they even like released a press announcement where they were very forward about, like, we understand that our employees are the reason why we're able to do business. So for their sake, but also for our sake. And I was really impressed with them because they did say on both ends, for their sake and our sake, we want to continue to work with them and treat them the best way possible now, because the way we treat our employees now will ultimately affect the way that we do business in the future. And they understood that one day they're going to have to open up.
Yeah.
And one day they're going to have these employees. And where Disney, on the other hand, didn't do that. They blanket just like got rid of tens of thousands of employees. I understand that, like, I'm not throwing shade, I'm not throwing judgment. I'm just stating the fact that they did it two different ways. And Disney has really struggled, especially in recent months, to get those employees back. And we have seen a lot of things not reopen because of that. Like, that is the reason why trams haven't reopened.
Yeah.
Obviously, we just talked about this the other week. The Magic Kingdom trams finally are back, like, operating, which is amazing. But the reason why it took so long was because they just didn't have the workforce to do it. And when they got the workforce to do it, they had to train them for weeks to do it. Like, I remember from the time that we got the announcement they're coming back to them being back, it was like 2 weeks or more that we saw those trams driving around in the Magic Kingdom parking lot, but no one was able to use them because they were training people. And the reason why the other 3 parks don't have trams yet is because they're busy training people right now. So a lot of these people that, you know, like, the reason why these things aren't returning is because of workforce issues. The reason why Typhoon Lagoon didn't return until now was because of workforce issues. I don't want to, like, you know, be negative about that, but that's just the fact, is that is one of the main reasons why it never returned. Also, obviously, budgetary issues. You know, water parks do cost money to maintain, but they're not your biggest source of income. You know, like, people don't go to Walt Disney World for Typhoon Lagoon. But it is interesting to me that Blizzard Beach has been open for quite some time now. Like, yeah. I wonder why they chose Blizzard Beach over Typhoon Lagoon. Yeah. Blizzard Beach is newer, right? By like 3 years or something like that.
I believe it is, yes.
That's probably why. But I don't know. When I think of water parks, I feel like Typhoon Lagoon is the more popular of the two, right?
I believe it is, actually. Yeah. Like, only there's statistics that I don't have available off the top of my head, but I just know there is a prestigiousness to that water park specifically, and I wish I could regurgitate it here.
Well, and there's more like upcharge things that they can do at that park too, because like with the wave pool, they actually offer surf lessons.
Yes, they do. I've actually experienced that. Yes.
Yeah, that's something that they've done since day one.
Yeah.
And that was one of the big announcements that they made. Hey, we're coming back. Like, we're opening up Typhoon Lagoon, and surf lessons are still going to be a thing. Like, that's one of the things that water park's known for. So it's weird to me, like, that one didn't open first, but it is open now. I am very happy that it's open now. I think the timing of it is a little weird, though, if I'm going to be honest. it's after their peak season's already ended. Like the same things that we were just saying about the Mummy, right? But the opposite.
Yeah.
Like their peak season's over. So who's really going to be going to Typhoon Lagoon?
In like January. No,
and it's January.
Yeah.
Like I know that it never gets freezing in Florida, but at times it does get cold.
It does. Yeah.
Like there will be days where it's 50 degrees as the high. And like I know that there are some crazy people from like Saskatchewan, Canada, or some like very up north. If you're from Alaska, or like I don't know, like
some Icelandic location.
Yeah, I know there are some crazy people that come to Florida and they're genuinely like 50 degrees. It's beach weather. No, it's not. You're crazy. Go home. No, not really. You can stay here. Just don't go to the beach when it's 20 degrees out. Like, it's weird. You do you, though. And so it's weird. A lot of these parks, these parks do have heated water.
Yes.
But
you have to get up out of the water and go from attraction to attraction. It's like freezing.
Exactly.
Cold, and you can die of hypothermia.
Yeah, and so because of that, even though it has heated water, a lot of people just don't go to the parks when it's that cold, regardless, because of that.
Yeah.
And so these parks, even though they can stay open year round, a lot of times they don't. Like there are times where, like specifically I can speak more towards Volcano Bay because I know more about that park than these other two water parks at Disney. But Volcano Bay at Universal, it technically does stay open year round, but a lot of times they only open it like when it's really cold out. A lot of times they only open it when it's like a Saturday, like it'll be open Friday or Saturday and Sunday or something like that. But you go on a Tuesday, you go on a Wednesday, like a lot of times it's closed for the day because there's just not enough draw for people to go to the water park. So it's just like a very interesting season. Like if I were them and it wasn't possible for me to open it sooner, I would just postpone it now because it almost seems like a waste because you're hiring all these people, you're training all these people, you're paying for, like, I don't know if you saw photos of Typhoon Lagoon a few months ago before it reopened, but the place was like, it looked like a ghost town. Like it was trashed. Like all the water was drained. It looked like no one had cleaned it in months because probably they didn't. So there were like leaves everywhere. And like, so the maintenance fees to be able to like sweep out all the pools and clean off all the slides and just to be able to get water flowing again.
Yeah.
And all of this happening just to know that there are going to be days coming up, weeks maybe even coming up, where you're just not going to be able to open that park.
There's like no foot traffic, yeah.
Yeah, no, so why spend all that money now? It's just very weird.
I almost wonder if the workforce they're actually able to obtain at this moment is not actually physically enough.
Yeah.
And so in their mindset, they're able to slowly kind of transition into the summer months.
Limited operation or something.
And kind of like grow with this extended period of time that they have available to them. I mean, because I know, like, even when... I'll never forget when Walt Disney World first announced its reopening, and with the whole limited capacity thing, I'll never forget Bob Chapek did an interview with like MSNBC, and he was saying, well, we're still going to make money. And that, like, they were not, everyone, like, for the, the diehard Disney fans out there who like think it's all for the magic.
Yeah, no, it's not.
It's not. And I get that because it can't be, or they wouldn't be able to operate a business and it wouldn't exist.
Yeah, it's all business.
But it was interesting because it was that perspective of, well, no, we're going to make a profit. Like, even with this limited capacity, even with the reduced workforce, whatever.
Because if they weren't, there's no point.
There's no why they're going to open. And so I can only imagine that they're probably not expecting a lot of people, and they're probably not going to employ a lot of people in the beginning, and maybe it gives them this opportunity to kind of maybe go, I guess, work backwards how they did with the trams, but they'll have this opportunity to train and take on all these new cast members, like, kind of in waves over the next several months until the hopefully busy months. God knows what's going to happen.
Yeah,
and then but like,
because they've got maybe 3 months.
Yeah,
3 months.
Literally, to really get it together. Yeah. I'd assume it's part of a bigger plan, but I'm not the mastermind behind it.
Yeah, so. That it's Disney's not, like, no one at Disney's an idiot. Like, I know people like to call them idiots in the media right now, but literally, like, you know, these are mastermind business people. Like, there's no way that they're listening to a podcast and being like, "Oh crap, he's right. We didn't think of this." You know,
that
like
Sean guy.
Yeah, right.
No, yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so it's like they definitely know that this is a slow season.
Strategic.
It's all strategic.
Yeah, it is.
I guess,
and it has to be, or they wouldn't be able to continue, and they wouldn't have continued for so long.
Yeah,
it just, you know.
Yeah, I'm just curious to know what that strategy is.
Yeah.
Like, what you're saying is probably the most accurate, where they're just slowly, like, phasing this back into...
Yeah.
But I haven't heard of any plans to, like, phase reopen this thing. It just sounded like that one day it was closed and now everything's open. You know, they're even marketing like, hey, we've got new desserts, and they're like, the big marketing push of Typhoon Lagoon is back wasn't, hey, we're back. It's hey, we're back and we've got new Dole Whip for you. And they announced like a whole bunch of different Dole Whips for this thing. So it seems like it's not just reopening, but it's like they're trying to like really do more with this too. I mean, obviously there's no new attractions, but you know, they are trying to give people incentives to get there. So yeah, I'm just curious to know like what that strategy is. They've got to have one, but the time period in which it opens tells me that they've got to have a strategy, because like, to me it doesn't make sense, and they're not idiots. So there's something going on here.
There's something going on there. There is. Yeah.
But let's turn that over to you guys. What do you think about Typhoon Lagoon reopening? Is this one of your... well, have you even been there? I don't know. Are water parks your thing? And if they are your thing, is this one of your favorite parks? And I don't know, just like, are you planning on going anytime soon? Personally, I would love to go, but I think I might wait until... like beginning of March into February maybe, but the winter season is a great time to go because no one is at the water park. So yeah, just let us know down below what you guys think of Typhoon Lagoon reopening. But with that, that's going to be our three main topics, and now we're going to move into the discussion section of this podcast, and we're going to keep this one a little short this week, I think, because we did talk about quite a bit of this last week in terms of all the things that we're excited for and expecting in 2022. But this is specifically, we're going to lean more towards kind of like questions that we have. Like, what do we think we might get? What are some questions we have that we want answered? Do you think we're going to get X? Do you think we're going to get Y? Those sort of things. And so to start this off, I want to throw out the question, Primeval World. It was closed for forever.
Yeah.
They tried reopening it. It didn't really open.
Yeah.
It kind of sort of did. It seemed like there's been a lot of drama going on with this ride. And then one day we blinked and it just wasn't there.
They tore it apart. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. One of my favorite photos in the theme park history of 2021 was the photo of a half demolished Primeval World and all the signs being like, the end is near. You know, because like,
of course, relating to dinosaurs.
Yeah, because the dinosaurs were always holding these signs saying like, the end is near, like you're gonna die or something, like, I don't know, just like all these funny, like, dramatic, like, apocalyptic signs, and the ride's being torn apart and these dinosaurs like, the end is near. One of my favorite photos of 2021 for sure. But yeah, so my question regarding Primeval World is, do you think this year there'll be any news about what's going on?
Well, first of all, I have to point out the fact that comparison that example or however you phrase that, actually made me think of the Holy Land off of the I-4.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, is it there, is it not? And now it's not there. Like, but that's...
Wait, is Holy Land not even open?
It's officially, it's closed.
Wait,
forever.
really?
Yeah, it is.
I didn't know this.
So, like, that's like, everything you said was almost the exact same story.
Yeah, because there's a time where...
Because it was like, is it open, is it closed? Like,
they were only doing shows or...
It's just closed. They officially announced it. They pulled the plug.
TBN. Come on, guys.
Because I don't know if you're not a local, you probably don't know, but they the sign is like, it doesn't have anything on it. People are like, why'd they do that? They're getting a new sign, but it's completely, they closed it.
Watch like some Muslim company take it over, and they wouldn't have to change much.
They wouldn't have to change now.
Yeah, they wouldn't have to change much.
But regarding, forgive me, because that was such an accurate depiction of that, so I had to go to that. But regarding the topic at hand, I don't really have the slightest idea what could go there. It's weird to me because all of Dino Land, like, what is the newest thing there? Do you know?
Well, technically, it's dinosaur, I believe, because it was originally it was.
I take that back, because what did they do?
Race to Extinction or something like that.
Donald's Dino Bash, whatever.
Yeah.
They kind of refreshed the land with all these character meet and greets, and like you can meet like Daisy and Donald Duck and Launchpad McQuack, and that was something they did push a few years ago.
You probably know more about that.
It's like
than
legit.
Me.
I'm like, this is real. Like, this is all real, because it was like part of this, like, it all premiered during the summer, and then it became like this just forever thing that is still there. And if you walk through it, you'll see the Donald's Dino Bash, and at night they do like a nighttime dance party with Donald, and it is like a whole thing. It's not, I'm not making this up, I promise. But it's funny because
what, like a Disney character dance party at Disney? But what, you're crazy, insane.
But now that we're talking about this attraction, it kind of makes me realize they've not done anything in Dino Land forever. And that is it. Yeah. And I guess that was like a mini refresh, if you even want to call it that, because it wasn't.
They slapped some paint on it and said, let's go.
And they added characters. But so as far as, I don't have the slightest idea. I don't even know what is dinosaur themed that they can pull from, like with all their incredible, intellectual properties, whatever. I don't know how they can. I don't know what they could possibly do there. I really don't.
So this is a curious one for me, because for the longest time, there has been the Zootopia rumor that they're going to put Zootopia into Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
But as...
It's not like a massive space, though. I don't know.
There is enough space for it to be put there.
Yeah.
People have done like a side-by-side with so they're putting Zootopia in at... Tokyo?
It's like an Asian Disney park.
One of the other overseas Disney
Asian
parks. There's so many of them that I just get them confused every now and then. And all the concept art looks the same. Like all the concept art looks the same for every single Disney park, so it's hard to like distinguish.
Of course.
Until it's open. As soon as it's open, we'll know. But at one of the parks, they're building Zootopia, and someone took like the plans, like the site plans for Zootopia over there, and put it over the space that's available here, and there is enough space for it. It's just Joe Rohde, the lead Imagineer for Animal Kingdom for the longest time, has had this no pants rule where Animal Kingdom is about like the real world, and it's about real world issues, and as soon as you put pants on animals, they're no longer animals. They are
like cartoon characters.
Well, they're they're allegories.
Characters,
they're allegories for human issues. So if you put pants on an animal, and like with Zootopia, right, like these are animals who live in a city and have jobs, and they're no longer animals. They are allegories for the human world and human issues and human problems, and that's not what Animal Kingdom is about. So Joe Rohde has been very passionate about that. And personally, I agree with him. I think if you're going to have a park that is based off animals, you should probably have a park that's based off real animals, not fictitious animals that represent human issues. So I get that, and I agree with that. But the fact is, Disney lately has been putting in IP in all of their parks, and Joe Rohde, as of, I think, a year ago, it might have been a little more than a year ago, has left Disney.
He has.
So he's no longer the lead Imagineer in charge of Animal Kingdom. So what he wants doesn't matter anymore. So there's this big, long-time running rumor that Zootopia is going to come to Animal Kingdom. And if they do, putting it in this section of... Because the dinosaur area of the park is technically two sections. It's like Dino-Rama and I don't know the name of the other one.
I just said Dino Land USA.
Yeah, like they separate it for like the you know, like the car park area, like it.
So are you talking about like the fair kind of?
Yeah,
the
it's like the carnival that was built on a car park. Like there's that side, and then there's the side where there's like the dig site. And Dinosaur, like the ride, is technically a part of that.
Yeah.
The carnival side is technically its own thing. And if you demolished all of that, there is enough area there to fit in this. So a lot of people are suspecting that maybe eventually we'll get that there. As of right now, it's literally Primeval World is literally just a seating area, and it shows up on the map as a permanent seating area, which is wild. And so honestly, I don't think we're gonna, knowing the state of Disney right now, how they have Guardians of the Galaxy, which is getting all of their attention, and then they're getting Tron, which is getting none of their attention because they're focused on so much on Guardians of the Galaxy and other things, God knows what other things, that I think they can't even focus on an attraction that's half built. I don't think we're going to get anything new with Primeval World. I feel like this ride is going to sit demolished as long as it sat standing but not operating, you know? Like, I think it's going to be years, honestly, before we get something where Primeval World was. And I think it's going to be, if not years, probably 12 to 18 months before we get even news about that. I think they just tore it down because it was costing them money sitting there not doing anything. So instead of worrying about it, and instead of whirling about it, that was bad. But instead of just like letting it sit, I think they just got rid of it. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get anything there. But it is what it is. Anyways, next one. There's been a lot of talk about this recently, especially in recent days. But Rock and Roller Coaster. Do you think we're going to hear anything about a refurbishment, like an extended like downtime refurbishment, or just straight up it being closed and rethemed to something else? There's been talks about it being rethemed for forever, like literally like probably 10 years. People have been talking about, oh, it's going down any day now. They're gonna close it down. We're gonna get news any day now that they're closing it down. One of the big things they've been talking about for years has been it being a Monsters Inc. roller coaster with like the doors and stuff. Not the band. It's not they're not going from Aerosmith to the Doors. No, I'm talking about the doors in
the Monsters
Inc., you know. So that's been a big rumor, but specifically I bring it up because last year there was a period of time where it was having a lot of technical issues, and it was up and down, completely shut down with no explanation for maybe, and then maybe it'll come online for and open up for an hour before the park closes or something like that, just randomly, sporadically, just it just was not reliable for about 2 months last year, and now just in the last week of December and the first week of January, it's been having those issues again, where it's just randomly having. They haven't said what, but something's been going on with it where it shuts down and they have to evac and it's been closed all day. And then days where it just doesn't open at all. And then there was one day, I believe December 31st, it was New Year's Eve. They opened it at 9:30 at night and it ran for a few hours and then they shut it down. But yeah, it's just been very random the way that it's been just opening and closing lately. So what do you have any insights about I don't know, just what are your thoughts on this whole scenario and issue of the ride being up and down, the fact that the Aerosmith contract has always been, this is another thing, the Aerosmith contract has always been expiring, and then they'll renew it and then it'll expire a few more years down the road. At what point do you think Disney just taps out and says maintenance is costing us enough, because it's an old ride? maintenance is costing us enough. We need to do a major refurb. We are tired of dealing with like renewing the contracts with Aerosmith. It's time to just put something in there that we actually own. So when do you think that Disney's going to just pull the trigger on doing an extended refurb on this? And if they do you think that it's not going to just be a refurb, but do you think they'll ever actually like retheme it? And do you think that's coming this year?
So I believe, oh my gosh, who is the lead singer of Aerosmith?
Steven Tyler,
wasn't he just there like this past year?
Oh, dude, he loves that park. Every time he goes to that park, he rides the ride. It goes all over social media.
So that's what I remember.
And he like actually waits in line too.
Yes, and there was a really big story about it this past year, and that him visiting it, and it just, I believe Disney also publicized it.
Yeah.
And that, in my time following Disney news closely, that was the first time I'd ever seen that. And so it made me feel like they were really supportive of him and this whole, I guess, deal that they have. Of course, that could be me like really reaching, but I feel like at the current moment, and even just giving everything you've just said earlier in this podcast, the fact that there's been so much money, time, resources allotted to just so many few projects.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anything happening the next year with this attraction. I understand there may or may not be technical issues, but at the same time, I feel like if they're still able to operate the ride, granted, there's always going to be repairs to be made and maintenance to be done on all of these attractions, but yes, you're right though, it is old. It's not a newer ride by any means, and that in itself is a reason to maybe give it a re-up, but I don't know. I feel like I can't imagine them just coming out of nowhere and announcing anything. Yeah. And also, I feel like they're just still recovering from all the money they've spent in Hollywood studios with with Galaxy's Edge. It was
Toy Story
and Toy Story Land,
Mickey and Minnie's
Runaway Railway. I mean, they've spent an obscene amount of money in that park. I feel like I just feel like all the money is going to Epcot. I don't know. I could be crazy. But I don't. I feel like they're like, we're done with you, Hollywood Studios. Like, we've given you enough.
It's time to share the love.
It's time. Yeah. Like, I just feel like there's no more money.
To go
around.
So there's been writing on the wall for this coaster for a long time, and you said like, of course, rides are expensive. Obviously, Disney definitely has not forgotten to factor in the fact that roller coasters in particular are expensive to maintain, and now they're like, oh crap, we didn't expect this to be so expensive. No, like we just got done talking about like Typhoon Lagoon. Like, these people are smart business people. They know what they're doing. They have experience. They are in the theme park industry, and they're not new to it. They know.
They're seasoned.
Yeah, they're seasoned, and so they have definitely I'm not necessarily concerned about it being too much of a budgetary issue to keep it open. I know a lot of people are pointing to that, especially because it's been going down so much lately. So I don't think the budget is such a big thing. Another big reason why the writing has been on the wall for a while now is because I believe it was 2019, they closed down. So there were actually two rock and roller coasters. Obviously, the one in Orlando was the original, but then they opened up one in Disney Studios Paris, which is the Disneyland Paris counterpart park. So there was one over there, and I believe in 2019, it might have been 2018, but I think it was 2019, that ride shut down permanently, like they closed it. And people have been pointing to that, saying, see, they got rid of it over there. That means they're getting rid of it over here.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's true, like, especially with Universal. If they shut down one of the rides in, I'm trying to think of an example. If... if they close down another ride here, there's not really too much of an example because so much of the parks are different now. But like back in the day, it's like when Back to the Future closed, we knew that the Back to the Future over there was closing.
Yeah.
And so we just should assume that the Back to the Future here is going to close.
Yeah.
E.T. closed over in Japan. We can expect, E.T. closed in Hollywood, and then it closed in Japan, and...
It's still rocking here.
Well, it is still rocking here, but that's because Steven Spielberg got in the way and said, "You will not touch this ride." But like when it closed in Hollywood, like people were like, "All right, expect the writing to be on the wall," and it's true. It happened in Japan. It closed. Like the list goes on and on. Terminator 2 3D, like the ride closed in Hollywood. You can expect it to close. It closed in Singapore, I believe. I don't know if it was in Japan, but all of them ended up closing. It closed here. Like the writing was on the wall, but I think it's a little different with this scenario because with Disney Studio Paris, that park is notoriously horrible. Like it is known as like one of, if not the worst Disney park ever built. Like even worse than opening day DCA, which says a lot. Like that park has been known as one of the worst. And in recent years, Disney's been pulling like what they've been doing with Hollywood studios, right? Like they've been just revamping everything. And so that ride is in the zone of where they're building their Avengers campus.
Yeah, because isn't actually, that's going to be an attraction that's not even in America. It's going to be something with...
Well, it's an Iron Man.
It's an Iron Man,
but it's an Iron Man re-theme of the Rock and Roller Coaster.
Okay.
So it's the same ride.
Yeah.
It's just rethemed to be Iron Man. So they actually didn't it's going to be the same track, same ride, just rethemed. Which is kind of like what they're suggesting will happen here with Monsters, Inc. Mm-hmm. Just, same ride, everything, just... But I think it's a little different over there because that park's struggling and they need something new. And Avengers Campus is going to be a great fit for that park because they just desperately need something to make it a full day park. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a little different. So I don't think that necessarily means that this ride is going to be closing anytime soon. Like you were saying with Aerosmith, like Steven Tyler was here. There's big press about it. It does seem like Disney and Aerosmith have great history working together. It seems like Aerosmith loves being a part of the park, and it seems like Disney's not in a rush to get him out. So I don't think that could be an issue. So contractually, they just re-upped. So I think they're good for another handful of years.
Yeah.
Another thing what you said was referring to what we were just talking about earlier. Disney's been spending so much money in other areas of the park that I don't think that they have the bandwidth really to be focusing on other areas. So I don't think that we'll see anything for that reason, but also that confirms that is they just refurbished the big guitar on front of Aerosmith. Like there was scaffolding and scrim on that thing for like 2 months.
Yeah.
They repainted the whole thing, refurbished it, repaired some damage to it and everything. So they've just spent some good money to make that ride look new or like make it look good.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they would do that if the ride was being planned to close anytime soon.
Yeah.
Now, and also the one credible rumor that has been out there has been that they've thrown up the idea of Monsters, Inc. And to me, like, although that sounds cool and, there's that big exciting moment at the end of the movie where they're riding the doors, mm-hmm. Like that might make sense for a roller coaster, but it doesn't make sense for a roller coaster that launches you from 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds and has 3 inversions. And it's the only roller coaster in Walt Disney World that has inversions, period.
Yeah.
Like, does that make sense? Like, does a kid's movie make sense for that kind of attraction? To me, it doesn't. Maybe some sort of roller coaster would be awesome for Monsters, Inc. But that one, I don't think so.
Not so much,
yeah. So those are my thoughts on that. I don't think it's closing anytime soon, especially for a retheme. A refurb, maybe. I think we might get news that it's going down for a refurb, but I don't think we're going to get any news about it going down for an extended refurb. No extended refurb, no retheme, I don't think. But maybe some news about it going down for a month. By the way, when I say extended, I'm talking about 3 months or more.
Yeah.
Like a big refurb. I don't think it's going down for an extended refurb. Next question, though. We were just talking about Epcot. Are we going to get more Epcot stuff? You know, there's a lot of stuff that has been pulled from the plans. We've talked about that in recent days. I think that was like 2 episodes ago or so. We talked a lot about Epcot, the stuff that has changed in terms of the plans, some of the stuff that is definitely fully going ahead. But there are some things that we know for sure, and there are some things that we don't really know what's happening. Some of the stuff is even opened. We've gotten the creation shop, and we know for a fact that this year we're getting, oh man, what's the name of the restaurant that's replacing the electric umbrella? It sounds like Creation Shop. It's like the Creativity Cafe or something like that. It's like the Creativity Cafe or something along those lines. We know we're getting that soon. Do you think we'll get any news about things going on with the big Epcot overhaul? And do you think we'll get any openings other than that restaurant?
Oh my gosh. That is a great question. You know, I feel like I commented something the other week about the Guardians of the Galaxy attraction. I can't remember exactly what I said, and I don't want to contradict myself, but I'm going to try my best not to. You know what? I feel like... I don't really know. I feel like there's... Because when is Guardians of the Galaxy supposed to open? Is it summer? Summer?
Yeah, summer. Early summer, I think?
Early summer 2022.
Yeah.
So we already kind of know about that. That's not really a thing anymore. Gosh, the only other major... What is another big thing being built there?
So they're working on Moana right now. One of the big things is that they...
And the new Future World, is that... Or what is that?
Well, so the big thing that's being talked about right now is that they started installing plumbing for Moana. So it's like they're definitely working on that.
Yeah. Because it's like a water experience.
Yeah. I honestly don't have a whole lot of answers for those questions. Like, I don't know what's going on with... So the Play Pavilion is officially back in construction, but we don't have any sort of word on that. So okay, so here are the things that... so do you think Moana will open this year? Do you think we'll get official opening date on the Play Pavilion? Do you think any more shops, stores, restaurants, any of that sort of stuff in that main area could possibly open? I don't know. And then do you think we'll have any information on the overhaul of Spaceship Earth? Those are kind of like... And Dreamer's Point. I'm going to tie Dreamer's Point in with Spaceship Earth. The Spaceship Earth refurb has been put on the back burner officially. Do you think it's going to be coming off the back burner? And I know that Dreamer's Point, so originally they were going to completely like rework, like demolish the building that was like the exit to Spaceship Earth.
Yeah.
And then build a new one that was more like shorter and confined to make room for Dreamer's Point. Obviously, Spaceship Earth refurb being taken... like off the schedule means that they can't demolish that area, but we know for a fact that Dreamer's Point is still happening. So that's kind of like, to me, I think they kind of go hand in hand a little bit. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on that specific project, the refurbishment of Spaceship Earth and Dreamer's Point and all that that's coming. And then, just all that stuff in general.
Well, see, I'm just, you know what? So when is the next?
There's a lot.
When is the next D23 Expo? Be 2023, correct? Because it's every 2 years.
But I do believe that Expo and Destination are interchangeable, right?
So we just had
Which so
whenever the next Expo is, which I don't actually know when it is, obviously, because you may know in just
I'm looking it up.
matter of seconds, but I feel like something as big as the Spaceship Earth renovation, because it was announced at the last D23 Expo prior to the COVID pandemic. I feel like
it is going to be at the end of this year. It's going to be September 9th to September 11th, 2022.
So is it D-Tweety.
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 The D-Tweeties. We go into the D-Tweeties.
So how would you say that? D23 Expo 2022.
It's going to be at the Anaheim Convention Center always.
So you know what? Maybe they will actually. Because I feel like, I don't know. Obviously,
we've got to get something, right?
I feel like they're going to announce, if they were to announce anything about Spaceship Earth, because that's actually the only thing I really care about. Just because that ride is so nostalgic for me. I could cry talking about it.
It's honestly
I'm going to get emotional in this moment because I love it. It's on another level, but it's funny.
You have to ride it when you go to Epcot.
Oh my God. It's just magic. And I grew up riding it. There's so many memories. I would never even explain.
We love the big golf ball in the sky ride.
Literally. But it's funny because the last time they talked about it was at D23 Expo.
Yeah.
2020. Whichever it was. And then, of course,
2019, I believe.
I believe it was. Yeah. And then, Doomsday happened.
Yeah.
And then I feel like that would be something they would hold on to for that event. And knowing that it's at the end of this year now, or towards the end of the year, I feel like if it's going to be announced, I think it'll be then. Mm-hmm. I feel like what will be announced is either they're planning to just move forward with the whole project, or they're planning to do another version of the project that might be lesser, but still different enough where it seems like a big change. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's a really tough one just because this is the weirdest time I've ever experienced in the theme parks. So I was like a kid with everything that happened following 9/11, but with this, as an adult, I don't really know. We've seen so many weird things, and it feels like they're still so behind on things. Yeah. Like the Tron, God knows.
What's so weird, what's different about, you mentioned, what happened with 9/11 back in 2001.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are kind of expecting there to be this big lull of stuff.
Yeah, that's the fear.
Yeah.
Correct, yes. Yeah.
But what's so interesting to me right now is, we do feel that pullback from these companies, especially Disney, where they're starting to, put things on the back burner. They're starting to not talk about these things anymore and starting to pivot. We do feel that, but what's so interesting is, the difference was 9/11 happened, the theme parks were in this big boom, 9/11 happened, and then no one showed up. No one went to the parks. It was like a ghost town at the parks. And because of that, the parks had to go into emergency mode. What's happening now is
it's the opposite.
Kind of the opposite, where it's, this big thing has happened and the parks are in emergency mode, but people are flocking to the parks. They can't
close the doors.
They can't close the doors. It's we are still in this big boom, and no one wants to admit it, but we are still in this big boom of theme parks where the theme park is the thing that people do when they vacation. Yeah. It's the thing what people do when they have any time off of work, any time off of school. We're going to Disney, we're going to Universal, we're going to Six Flags, we're going wherever. Parks across the board are still right now experiencing this massive boom even after COVID hit. And so what you were saying, I just don't know, right? You were saying that you just don't know.
Yeah.
And for real, I don't think we know, because a lot of people are trying to compare these two events, what happened in 9/11 and then what happened in 2020 and 2021, and God, the rest of history, who knows?
Yeah.
They're trying to compare them so much, but they just are not the same event. It's not the same outcome. The parks are still being profitable right now. And so will Disney see that and say, okay, well then I guess we can move forward with these plans?
Yeah.
Or do they continue to freak out and be like, well, we don't know, things are still uncertain,
or we're still trying to make back our money, like, you know, like there's so many things. No, I know.
Yeah. I agree with you, though, that a lot of Epcot stuff, I feel like we'll have official announcements at D23.
I feel like that, like, it's just the best opportunity for them because they'll have this massive stage, and I feel like it's like a redemption for them in this weird way.
Yeah, it's like a big celebration, like we're
coming
back.
Like, you know, COVID kicked us on our behind.
Yeah.
But we are standing back up. You know,
I think a lot of people, though, were hoping to hear that from Destination D23, and we just didn't hear that. And I feel like a lot of people got let down. And I hope that we hear that at Expo. I don't know if we will, but if we do hear it at all, it will be there.
Yeah.
I hope we do.
You know what? Now that I just made this connection myself because I wasn't actually thinking about this. There's a very optimistic side of me that feels like maybe something along those lines will come to head at this event. But of course, it's so far out. You know, it's literally the beginning of January. But you know,
do you have any insight into Moana? Do you think?
I don't really care about Moana.
You don't really care? Okay, so
like I'll just say this really quick.
Yeah.
It's like a kiddie ride. Or attraction. It's not even a ride. It's like I feel like it's like a people mover. I always say that. Obviously, it's not a people mover because people mover is an attraction at Magic Kingdom.
Something you can ride.
It's just something to move people like through the parks. And, you know,
the term for that is a people eater. Actually,
well, that sounds painful. But,
that does sound painful.
But just whatever. I understand what you're saying. I'm making fun of you. But
the theme park terminology.
People
all right,
eater.
Get it right. We're trying to educate here, all right?
Yeah.
I'm just
but it just like that's all I think of that as, and I don't respect it. So
so I think that Disney really hyped this up, like, hey, it's a big thing where we're adding to Epcot or whatever. I think it is going to be rather small. I think it's going to not be lackluster, but I think it's going to be something that I think it's going to feel like it would be at home in like Animal Kingdom. You know, Animal Kingdom has a ton of small little like walk-through pathway things that are really neat to experience, but it's not like you've got to do this. And I feel like Moana is going to kind of be the same way. It's going to be like a nice little walk-through experience, a nice place to chill if you want to chill. But it's going to just be walk through. Like, I don't think there's going to be any like employee attendance. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's going to be like, hey, come back. Here's your return time.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going to be like, it's here, and if you want to do it, you can. But there's like no employee that is like shoving people through. It's just going to be like here it is.
No, like Fast Pass Plus. Like
it's just going to be like an extra pathway that you can take that has water and music, and I think that's what it's going to be. I have high hopes for it in terms of like I think it's going to be a nice addition to the area. I think it's going to be pretty. I think it's going to be I've always criticized Epcot for not having shade at all. Like if you go in there during summer, it is hot. Like Epcot is the one park that I just can never seem to not get sunburnt at during the summer. Like,
I've been with you several times.
Yeah. And even after sunscreen. I will, like, offer
you more, and you're like, no, I put some on.
Yeah.
and your face is like so red. No, I've experienced this firsthand with him. Yeah.
Every other park I'm fine. Epcot,
we've like
kills me.
Had drinks around the world, and I've seen his face.
Yeah.
Like, after. Which is always beautiful, but you know, like it gets red and it looks like it hurts. Like,
so I am very welcoming to any addition to Epcot that has green and shade.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be great, but I think it's going to be small. I am giving it a solid 65% shot at actually opening up before 2023. So in this year, because I'm saying I think it's small.
Yeah.
They're already installing the water feature, like the plumbing and stuff for the water features. They're already working on pathways to connect all this stuff. I don't think that they'll have like the main areas open. But I think that at this point, they're just trying to get anything open that they can. You know, like they could have waited for that whole wing to open up Creation Shop. Yeah. But instead, they were like, we've got this. Let's just go ahead and open it. And then this cafe, there's no news of any of the other stuff that's opening up. It's just this cafe. And there's supposed to be like 2 other locations. Like there's supposed to be a Starbucks and a store or something like that.
Yeah.
There's no news on those things opening, but this cafe is opening this year. So I think they're just desperate to open anything. Now, I'm not being overwhelmingly positive saying 85, 90, like it is opening. Now I'm saying 65, which is a little bit more than 50-50. Like if you just go, I genuinely don't know, that's 50-50. I'm saying just beyond 50-50, I'm saying I think there's a shot.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. So I think there's a shot that it opens in 2022. It's just 2022 still feels like I'm talking about the future. Like I feel like I'm still in 2020.
We are here. It's true. But
2022, it feels like it's 3 years away, but it's right now.
That's true.
So right now in this year, I think there's a shot. Play Pavilion, I think we're going to get a date, but I don't think it's going to open. But I think we will get a date in 2022. In terms of any other shops, I think we might get a Starbucks, or maybe not a Starbucks, but some other small,
like a Joffrey's or something,
or a Joffrey's, something like that, right next to the cafe or Creation Shop area. But yeah, I think that's about it for Epcot. Like this next one that I had was Spaceship Earth Refurber news. We kind of just talked about this. I'm agreeing with you. I think D23, we're going to get news on that. And I think it's going to be scaled back. And I think we're still going to get that remodeled exit so that their plans for the Dreamer's Point still works. They seem pretty adamant on Dreamer's Point is still happening. So much so that in their end of the year Christmas celebration fireworks show thing that they always put on ABC and all that, which you can see on Disney Plus right now, they always talk about new things that are coming to the park the next year. And they talked about Dreamer's Point, but they did not talk about Star Cruiser, which is crazy to me because Star Cruiser actually is opening this year.
Oh my gosh, it is.
It is.
Yeah.
And that was something that we didn't talk about last week. All the new stuff coming in 2022 that we're excited about. We were excited about IceBreaker opening, but we forgot
we can't afford the Star Cruiser.
Well, I know, right? We're too broke for that. But broke college students, right? Something like that.
Something along those lines.
Yeah. So I think we're going to hear Spaceship Earth D23 scaled back. We're still getting that exit, though, that was in the concept art.
Yeah.
We're getting Dreamer's Point. I don't think we're going to get any news on that weird table thing that we talked about last week, or not last week, 2 weeks ago or whatever. You know,
the
like
viewpoint thing,
the lookout point thing that's at Epcot right past Dreamer's Point. I don't think we're going to get it, and I don't think we're going to get any news, which is really sad because that was the thing I was looking forward to the most. Sounds stupid, but I was. Moving on, though, that was a lot of Disney stuff. We have a few Universal things that we want to get to. Obviously, Epic Universe is the thing that everyone's talking about right now. We talked about this a little bit last week, but do you think we will get any official announcements for Epic Universe? I'm not talking about like more news or more rumors. I'm talking about Universal proper, like Universal themselves actually coming out and saying this is what's happening, or this is what, like, giving us official announcements.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't.
No?
No. I feel like if 2025 is the projected finish date, it's now 2022. That's what, 3 years away from now?
Yeah.
Potentially.
2.5-ish.
2.5. I wouldn't even want people to know what I'm doing because I'm so far away from completing it. I feel like it's almost like, I always think back to James Cameron with all the Avatar films. You know, the first one is so remarkably incredible, and then
Hey, that's another thing coming out this year.
That's coming out.
Avatar 2 is coming out this year, baby.
It was supposed to come out like 6 years ago.
It was supposed to come out 12 years ago.
Literally 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Which is remarkable that any film can be pushed back so many years.
Yeah,
and
we were just talking about. Wait, that didn't come out yet?
Literally. And so, like, I feel like James Cameron got so much crap for that, and so. Like, because he kept talking about it, and then they kept talking about it, and then talk about it,
and
it's like
Disney
it's not coming.
as well. Like, Disney keeps talking about it.
And so it's like, I feel like Universal's like, we're not going to talk about this because why? We don't have anything that we're ready to show anyone. Mm-hmm. I really don't feel like their budgets are done. I don't feel like anything is done.
Yeah.
I feel like they've got a lot of work ahead.
Yeah.
And that's just from like a theme park fan, whatever that I am. I'm obviously not inside. I don't like have access to behind the scenes at Universal Orlando Resorts.
What? You don't? Come on, man. What are
wish
you doing on the
I
show
know,
then?
Literally.
What do we have you on for?
Kick me out.
Yeah. He's pointless. He's
pointless. But it's just, I feel like, with it being such a far lead time, I don't know. That's my personal opinion, but I understand like any perspective.
Well, and that fits in with their MO too. Yeah. Like Universal has, and we keep on saying this, the big difference between Disney and Universal right now is Disney announces, hey, in the year 2045, we are planning on releasing this new type of churro. They'll announce anything that they want, big or small, and they'll announce it as soon as they think it up. Mm-hmm. Like we're a big example of this is Splash Mountain, right? Like they announced Splash Mountain.
Oh my gosh!
Freaking 2 years ago, and it's still operating right now. Like they were going to close it down and turn it into Princess and the Frog.
Yes.
And the rumor is that it's going to close at the end of this year.
But no one actually knows.
But that was announced in 2020. 2020!
Which is now 2 calendar years ago.
Yeah, 2 calendar years ago.
Yeah.
And at the end of 2022, like, that's wild to me. That's literally a little more than 2 years after they announce it, right? They announced, okay.
And that's not even them, like, closing to restart the refurb. It's
the Walt Disney World Railroad.
Yeah.
We talked about this last week. Closed in 2018. 2018. Yeah. That ride's been closed for 4 years. And that's like one of the heart, that's one of those rides that's like it's the heart of Magic Kingdom. And it's been closed for 4 years. Because of a ride that they announced. And I know that one is a little unfair because of COVID and all that.
Yeah.
But how many years did it take for them to build Galaxy's Edge like they announced in 2015 or whatever? And it opened in 2019? I
believe so.
And I know that's a big project.
It is,
but that was a land with one ride in it because Rise of the Resistance didn't open until later. So, like, one ride.
That's true.
Yeah. And so I don't know. It's just Disney announces all these things years in advance.
They do.
And then it takes them years to build it. And then by the time it opens, it's like, thank God, like finally. Where Universal is the opposite.
It's like a secret.
They build the ride for years.
Look at the Bourne. Oh my God. Was it the Bourne idea?
The Bourne. Stuntacular.
That was a dirty secret until like, okay, it's here. Like,
it was literally, they announced it and then like 2 months later it was open.
That was a dirty secret. Yeah. No one really knew it was going there. They thought they knew.
Like there was rumors, but nothing official.
Universal never talked about it. No.
Yeah.
They did it. They built it. They created it. And then, announcement. It's open. So
they did the same thing with Hagrid's, right?
Yeah.
Like I would love to know.
Velocicoaster. Oh my goodness.
I would love to know so obviously the stuff leaks, it gets out. People know based off of permits being filed, insiders, talking to the wrong person or whatever, and like things getting leaked. It happens. So we know this stuff before Universal announces it, obviously. Like we knew the Velocicoaster. That's why that big churro meme happened. It was because we knew what it was and they weren't announcing it. So people made a joke about it. We've talked a lot about this over the last few weeks, but I would be very curious to know, like, just how many months before Velocicoaster opened did we get the official announcement? I wouldn't be surprised if it was like 2 months.
Well, and I even like I'm thinking about
Universal, like we don't know anything about it, and then officially anything about it, and then Universal announces it, and then 2 months later we have an attraction.
That was like Volcano Bay. And granted, that was a water park, but it was like
a whole park though.
It was a whole theme park, and it was like maybe a few months prior to it opening.
Yeah.
If that. And then this is all the stuff it's gonna have, you know, Krakatoa, all those announcements came, and then it opened right after. It wasn't like this long. So I could see that being the case with this. However, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, you know, I think
we won't know until we know.
I think that if anything, you know, Universal's seen some big success with Super Nintendo World.
Yeah.
And the fact that they already announced that it's going to be coming to Orlando, like Universal Hollywood knows that it's coming there, and construction has already been started on it. And we know that it's coming to Orlando, but no construction has been started in the 2 existing parks that we have now. 3 existing, but one's a water park, so it's definitely not going there. You know,
that's
so
true,
2 existing parks. We don't like nothing started. So I think maybe this year we might get an announcement that okay, Super Nintendo World's not coming to the 2 parks that we have. It's coming to Epic Universe. I think if there's an announcement that we get, it's going to be that. I don't think we'll get any announcement. I think, personally, I don't think, like, if I'm going to put my money on it, I'm going to say we don't get any announcement. But if we do get one, it's going to be Super Nintendo World. But I think that we might get updated concept art, because a lot of stuff with the project has changed since the initial time that they gave us that first piece of concept art. I think we might get updated concept art, but that is about it for Epic Universe, unfortunately. Do you have time for two more small Universal ones? All right. We'll make these ones quick because there's honestly not too much to talk about them. But more along the lines of Universal, with their secrecy, there's not a whole lot to talk about with these things. But I will say this one first. There's 2. I'll go with this one first. Poseidon's Fury. What's going on with it? Universal has had Poseidon's Fury closed since the pandemic. Actually, I don't know. Was it open for a little bit?
It was open
for a little bit.
I went on it.
Yeah. I don't know why, but everyone's reporting that it's been closed since the pandemic. It hasn't.
No.
Because what happened was Universal opened and then realized that they didn't have like the workforce or the money, like the resources to keep all this stuff open with such limited capacity. So there was a bunch of rides that they closed. Like, for example, they closed Storm Force Acceleron. They closed Fast and Furious. They closed Fear Factor. They closed Animal Actors, I believe. They closed maybe 1 or 2 more things, smaller things. Other than other than Fast and Furious, all the other things were just like small little things. There wasn't anything big like Harry Potter's closing and it's not opening. But everything on that list that had closed down ended up reopening since then. Yeah. Obviously, like Fear Factor is permanently closed now, but it did reopen for a time, I think, right? Did it reopen? No, it didn't reopen. What happened was they opened up that stadium for HHN.
Yeah.
That's what happened. So, but Fear Factor is officially closed. Everything else, though, has officially reopened except Poseidon's Fury. And as of right now, it's behind work walls, and they're currently doing work on the facade, like repainting and stuff, and patching up spots that need patching up and all that. But they just put character meet and greets out in front of Poseidon's Fury, where some of the characters of Poseidon's Fury, like the doctor and his assistant and all that, are standing out in front talking about Poseidon's Fury. What's going on with it?
Yeah.
I don't think it's closed. Obviously, they wouldn't be doing this work on it if it was closed. But this is like the last remaining thing in Lost Continent.
Yeah.
This is the one land that if there was going to be any major change to Islands of Adventure, we all know Lost Continent's the one that's closing. But I think because Epic Universe is coming, so much of their attention is being put on to Epic Universe, so we're not going to see any big additions to the park. to the 2 parks that we currently have. I think we might see some small additions, and obviously the one attraction that we were talking about with Fear Factor just last week, I think we might see that and some small additions, but nothing big. So I don't think it's closing, at least anytime soon. But I do think that once it reopens, I think there's going to be some big changes. Not necessarily like it's a completely different attraction, but I think there might be some storyline changes, and I think there might be some graphic changes. Universal, like we were talking about with The Mummy earlier, when The Mummy closed down last year, when it reopened, the one thing that really changed was audio and video. Like a lot of the projections got upgraded. It seems like right now they're kind of upgrading a lot of projections in some of their rides. I wouldn't be surprised if this, because the Poseidon's Fury is a fantastic attraction. If you've never experienced it, watch YouTube videos. If it reopens, definitely go experience it once it reopens. It actually is a fantastic experience. It's just the issue with it is that it's very dated. Like there are, in my personal opinion, Poseidon's Fury has one of the best wow moments in it out of every single attraction in Orlando, out of Universal, Disney, SeaWorld, whoever. I think Poseidon's Fury has one of the best wow moments.
There is a moment.
There is one moment where, like, the first time you experience the attraction, you're like, whoa, what? Like, and there's a few really good moments in that attraction, but there's one that will, like, you're not expecting it. And it's really cool. Obviously, walking underwater is really cool.
Yeah.
It has some great moments. The story is actually kind of fun, but the graphics in the last scene is what kind of lets that attraction down. And I think that once it reopens, we'll see that Universal did some work on it and gave the story a little bit of a upbeat to kind of make it a little bit more interesting and engaging. And I think that more than likely they probably, since it's been down for so long, like they've got to do something. I think that they updated that video, and God, I hope so, because I want to love Poseidon's
It's like
Fury.
Remarkably dated when that video specifically.
The video,
It's like whatever it is. I want to spoil it, but whatever. It is very dated, and it just looks old. It does, and it feels old.
Which is funny, because that's actually the second version of that attraction.
That's wild.
When it opened in 1999 with the rest of the park, that attraction received so much mixed review, saying that like the storyline was confusing, they didn't quite get it or whatever, that only 3 months after the ride opened, it shut down. And one of the big changes that they made was they rewrote that. So they rewrote the story of the attraction, but they specifically rewrote that final scene with all the video projections and stuff on the water. They rewrote like all of that stuff. So this would now be the third iteration of the attraction, and I honestly hope that they do it. Third time's the charm, right?
Third time is the charm.
Yeah.
It is.
But what do you think? Do you think that that's a possibility?
I feel like they're probably just going to refurbish it. I feel like that's what's happening.
No changes, really?
I don't feel like... I think we actually talked in an earlier episode about the idea of... Well, I don't know if actually who I talked to this about, but so I'm just going to say this, and I don't know if we talked about it, but I'm just going to say it. In the past, I've always heard of that potentially expanding as like a Harry Potter area because of its location being so close to Hogsmeade.
Yeah.
And so, like, obviously that's always been like this thought because it makes sense, but at the same time, it
originally was all a part of one area.
Yeah.
Like Hogsmeade took over Lost Continent.
Yeah.
So Lost Continent got split in two, and the back half became Harry Potter. So it makes sense if it expanded,
but I feel like now, because they're probably taking a lot of those, maybe even some of those Harry Potter ideas that would have gone there, and that could be applied to that of Epic Universe. It probably doesn't make as much sense, and so for that reason, I could just see them let's give it
another very credible,
which I love a new projection.
who doesn't love a new projection? I mean, come on. I project all the time. But no, another big credible rumor that had been surfacing around for a long time was Zelda. That
I think I'm pretty sure I heard that.
The Legend of Zelda.
It was a while ago, but I did hear that.
Yeah, because you could kind of keep that like mystical kind of
fantasy,
theme, the fantasy kind of theme to it. But just retheme it to Zelda. There was a rumor that it would be like a boat ride attraction, and there was even there were a few permits, like
trademarks, not trademarks.
Yeah, not trademarks. You know what I'm talking. Patents.
Patents.
There were some patents filed specifically for like a flying kind of boat ride where it was supposed to be like
sounds like Peter Pan.
Yeah, well, no, it was like an actual boat ride. Yeah, where you're actually in water, but then there would be a moment where there's like a waterfall, and then instead of going down the waterfall, you would actually like fly.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, really interesting patents.
Yeah,
but people that like surfaced right around the same time as Zelda boat ride idea kind of thing. So those two ideas kind of got put together like. See proof, like there's proof here. But with that being said, and that was like right around the same time that Super Nintendo got announced for Orlando. But since then, there's been a lot of changes to the plans for Super Nintendo World. Originally, and we're going to get into this in our next and final question. But originally, Super Nintendo World was going to be put in Kid Zone.
Yeah.
And that project got moved along so far that 1 year for Halloween Horror Nights, they even didn't have any of the queue lines. I believe it was 2018. It was 2017. They had, I know this because I was a scare actor in 2017, and my house was in the Kid Zone area. So I know this because I saw it firsthand. So I'm calling you out, Universal. I saw it. I know. Insider knowledge here. 2017, they actually like diverted all the queue lines to not go through Kid Zone, and they put up work walls. So I don't know if any of you guys remember HHN 2017, but over by ET, that whole area was like work walled off. Like you still used that area as like an exit, but you weren't able to see into like Fievel's Playland or any of like that stuff. Like everything was like really work walled off. The queues didn't go through Barney like they normally would. So instead, like all of Curious George and all that area was free. So we actually, at one point we actually had a barbecue. Like at the end of the run, we like the whole cast of my house had a barbecue in Kid Zone, like where the lines normally go through.
Yeah.
So like Curious George, all the lights were off. It was super creepy, and we were having a barbecue in our like blood makeup and all this stuff. It was like if you could just take a screenshot of that moment, it would be like the creepiest thing, because like all these like people. Anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent, but it got so far into the planning that they actually started work walling things off to be demolished. And then I remember just a few months after the event ended, I went back, and the break space that we shared with like our whole house and everything, our break space was demolished, and they were demolishing the whole area around that break space, and to this day it hasn't been rebuilt. But the reason why it got demolished in the first place was because they were like going ahead with the plans. We're putting Super Nintendo World in here. Yeah. And then at the last minute, Epic Universe got the official green light, and they pulled the plans out of there and put it in Epic Universe because Epic Universe needed a big IP to anchor that park. And so they put Super Nintendo World in there. Anyways, this is a very long-winded story to say that those plans for Super Nintendo World has changed a lot. Yeah. Therefore, the ideas of Legend of Zelda have probably changed or gotten postponed along with them. Like a few weeks ago, we were talking about the idea of expansion lands. Like if one area does well, save an area to expand. Because we were talking specifically about the way Disney builds a land and then like promises 2 rides, and then they open it with 1, and it's like, what the heck? And we use Super Nintendo World as an example of how it's traditionally done and how it should be done, which is you build your land, the fully fledged, planned out land, and then you expect it to do well, so you save a plot next door, and after that performs well and proves that it does well, then you use that expansion plot next door to open a new ride. And so they built Super Nintendo World, and now they're building the Donkey Kong roller coaster or whatever next door. There was a idea being floated around that if Super Nintendo World did well in former Kid Zone, which is now still around, so in just Kid Zone, then Lost Continent would be taken out and they would put Legend of Zelda in. But plans change, and Poseidon's Fury is still here. So, with all that being said, I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. And I think, honestly, the Legend of Zelda plans were probably more accurate than, or like more likely than the Harry Potter ones. But the Harry Potter ones were probably definitely in consideration. That rumor, if I am not mistaken, comes originally from 2012. They closed Jaws. By the way, just the other day was the 10-year anniversary of Jaws closing, and it shook me because I remember that like yesterday.
That's wild.
It felt like it was a few years ago. It was 10 years, a whole decade ago. But originally they were going to put Diagon Alley in that second half of Lost Continent that is still around. That didn't happen because they realized that there was such a big attendance boost at Islands and not an attendance boost at all in Studios, that the two parks were actually being like outweighed. Like the Islands was getting so much traction where Studios wasn't, that they ended up deciding to put Harry Potter over there to kind of balance it out a little bit. Very smart move, but it left Lost Continent untouched. So it's very interesting how like plans change, but rumors stick around, right?
No, of course.
And so with all of this, like Poseidon's Fury is just like there's story after story about like it was leaving and then now it's not, and then maybe, but now it is.
It has
but is
a rich
it?
history.
And then it has a rich history of like almost being on the chopping block.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's sticking around at least for this year.
Oh, of course.
At least for this year. But speaking of rich history of almost being demolished, and then like so many rumors surrounding it that have a lot of credible history to it, but just nothing ever happening. We're talking about the curse of Kid Zone. It's a real thing. People believe that Kid Zone is cursed at Universal. Do you think this 2022 is going to be the year that breaks the curse of Kid Zone?
I don't.
No,
I don't. I feel like, because I've actually heard now 1,000 different things about Kid Zone since I was in high school, which unfortunately was many years ago. For the viewers at home, so many years ago. But for that reason, I feel like nothing's ever. It's not going to happen. If it happens, it's not this year. I don't even think it'd be in the next few years. I feel like I do believe Epic Universe.
It's just kind of put things on hold.
Universe, It's taking all of the universe to kind of bring it together. I do think that. Yeah,
no, I agree. Again, everything that has been rumored as of recently has been kind of tied to Super Nintendo. Pokemon has been a big rumor that's been swirling around over there. Another one that's been popping up, especially recently, has been Secret Life of Pets. But there's been talks about Secret Life of Pets, which is in Hollywood, which just opened. And
I went on it. It was okay.
You did?
Yeah, when I was there in August, and it was cute.
So that's it.
It was cute. I wasn't like, oh
my gosh,
like it was cute, but I went on. Yeah,
okay, because everything that I've been hearing is that it is so good that it's like it's Universal out Disneying Disney. No, it's not.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
It's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, that's like that was the same thing with the Jurassic Park. There, it was like gonna accept, like it was getting ready to expect the universe, like the world.
Yeah,
and I was like. It just felt like an overlay of ours. Mm-hmm. Like literally.
Well, I mean, it literally was an overlay.
But that's all that it felt like. It didn't feel like this exceptional, like just like
Like it made it like
it wasn't
it was
so
good,
innovative
but now
and
it's
imaginary.
amazing.
No, not at all. It was just like, okay, it's in line with a new movie series now. I get it.
And that was about it.
That was how I felt. But that's another story for another time.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think that Secret Life of Pets, one way or another, I do believe it's going to end up in Orlando. People are just clamoring for it so much because, Universal is still on this thing of like, we are like the fans of Universal. It's like we're just so exhausted with all these screen-based attractions. Give us something real. And even though we've gotten a few things that are very tangible, like we got Hagrid's and we got Velocicoaster, sorry, shut up, timer. But
Stop. They're like pawing at the floor. Anyway,
we've got cats, a cat infestation. But yeah, like even though we have these two attractions, I know that people are still like
mind blown. Yeah.
Well, they're because it's another attraction that is so physical. It's something that you do not expect from Universal. It's something that you would expect from Disney, right?
Yeah.
It's like a modern day version of like a Disney Omnimover dark ride. And people are so mind blown about that because it came from Universal and it's like an old classic but new. And theme parks aren't doing old classics but new. They're trying to reinvent, or they're not trying to reinvent things. They're trying to revolutionize things. So they're trying to make something that's new, that's never been done before. And then here comes Universal and does something that has been done before, but then does it so well that even though it's a new attraction, it has that nostalgia feeling to it. Like when you ride Secret Life of Pets, from what I've heard, there's so much nostalgia for that old Omnimover dark ride style system that it's like the modern day version of like the Haunted Mansion kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And there's so much nostalgia for that type of ride. I think that because of the hype, there's no way that it doesn't end up in Orlando somehow. However, is it coming to Kids Zone? No. Don't think so. Is it coming to Shrek, that is also shutting down this week, by the way? I don't think so. I hope it does. I actually really hope it does come to Shrek. I would prefer Secret Life of Pets at Shrek than I would another Minions thing, which is the current rumor going on with that. So, no, I don't think it's coming to Shrek.
Yeah.
I think that there has been a lot of change up. This is the reason why when we were talking about Epic Universe, I said I think we might get some updated concept art, is because we know a lot of stuff is changing with the Harry Potter section that's going on over there. We know that there has been a lot of budgetary things happening, so some of Monsters has probably been changed. Like there was a lot of rumors going on about that big amphitheater not existing anymore that's over there. There's been a lot of stuff that has been thrown up in the air of maybe things are changing. And then on top of that, there was a interview with some executive. I can't remember if it was Tom Williams or someone else, but it was some big executive at Universal was being interviewed. I actually think it was Tom Williams, but don't quote me. Where he said that at Epic Universe there was going to be properties from blank, like he listed off all these like big IPs and franchises that Universal owns or has the rights to for the theme parks. And one of the things that he said was Illuminations. I was going to say DreamWorks, but it's not DreamWorks. He said Illuminations. And currently there are stuff in the plans for DreamWorks. There is stuff in the plans for Fantastic Beasts or Harry Potter, Harry Potter in general. There is something in the plans for Super Nintendo. There's not something in the plans for Illumination.
Yeah.
What is Illuminations? Secret Life of Pets is Illuminations property. So I think ultimately that is going to be thrown into Epic Universe as well. The Curse of Kid Zone, I think the Curse of Kid Zone is going to be here until Epic Universe opens. And then I think, the first thing that goes is definitely between Lost Continent and Kid Zone. But I think the first thing that goes is probably going to be Kid Zone, but it's not going until Epic Universe is here. And maybe even then, a year, 2 years at best, it'll still be here. So we've got some time. We've got probably another 5 years, I'm going to guess, with Kid Zone. There might be some small changes, like we got the DreamWorks theater thing, which is just like a character meet and greet. It's not anything much. But I think it's going to be, for the most part, I think it's going to be here for the next 5 years. I don't know.
I agree.
You agree?
I do.
Are there any other things that pop off the top of your head about questions, potentials, maybes for the parks over the next year?
I don't think so, in all honesty, like as I think about it. I think,
Like we kind of know everything that's happening at SeaWorld and Busch Gardens.
Yeah, and I feel like the Disney parks have been pretty upfront, and we won't hear anything more probably until
D23.
Yeah, and then Universal,
they never say anything.
So, yeah, I think we're in a good spot.
Yeah. Here's one last question for you. Do you think we'll get any news about what's replacing Fear Factor?
No, I don't.
But
not this year. I don't think so. I feel like whatever it is, if they demolish that, if they don't, they're gonna build it and they're not gonna tell anyone, and then they're gonna. Because
that's how Universal rolls.
Universal is. Yeah. So I don't actually. I do not.
Yeah.
I don't believe we're gonna hear.
But you think we'll start having construction this year?
We might.
Yeah.
But I've not actually been there since HHN, in all honesty, that I can remember. So I've not physically seen it in quite a bit of time.
Yeah, I haven't.
And I've not been following closely on social media, so I can't say I've seen anything.
Yeah, I haven't seen the theater since it closed. I've been to the park, but I haven't walked past Fear Factor since it closed officially, which was back in the end of November, I believe. So it's been about a month and a half. So I haven't seen it. So I don't expect anything to happen within the next few months, but I think we'll be talking this time next year, and that theater will be gone, and there'll be a lot of construction underway.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to get something, but I don't think we're going to get anything official. But anyways, I think that was the one last thing that just came to me off the top of my head. I think everything else we have covered. All right. So thank you guys so much for watching or, listening to this podcast. If you're doing the audio-only version, which you can find on Apple iTunes Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, you name it, iHeartRadio. We're on Stitcher. Where you Overcast? I could keep going. Don't make me keep going because I could. It's all listed down below. Of course, you can find us at the Drop Podcast. We also, I'll list the website that we have for this podcast. So if you want an all-in-one place where you can go watch these videos, listen to the audio only, find anything that you need, that's all down below. If you're listening in the audio version, I would really appreciate it if you could actually rate the podcast, and maybe even if you have the time, it would be awesome if you could leave a small little review, because that really would help us iron out the podcast. We're still a new show, so we want to know what you guys like, some of the things that we could change maybe. So leave us that review. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the bell notification to be notified when these podcasts drop. We're dropping them every single week like they're hot. We're just dropping them. We're coming in. There's been weeks where we dropped 2, and I could have dropped 3 podcasts, but I dropped 2. Actually, no, I think the week of Christmas we dropped 3 because there was 2 in 1 week. But then the next week happened and I dropped the 3rd one. So I don't know, 2 maybe. There have been times that there have been multiple in a week. I'm just saying. So they're coming out. So hit that bell to be notified when they drop. And if you like the video, go ahead and hit the like button. It really does help people just like you find the content that you like. So share the theme parks and share the love of theme parks. Share the conversation with people. Hit the like button and leave your thoughts down below. Start the conversation. We'll be jumping in there having that conversation with you. But until next week, guys, thank you so much for watching. One final note before we go. Sean, where can we find you?
At Sean Spazzato on Instagram.
That's awesome.
I'm going to say that at Instagram.com.
At Instagram.com.
Sound like I'm 1,000 years old.
You could do it that way. You can do Instagram.com /Sean Spazzato. That's the full link.
That is it, actually.
HTTPS //
Yes.
And you can find me on pretty much any social media, Instagram, Twitter, you name it, at John Holt 96. And of course, all of the theme park merch and whatnot that you want to decorate your house with, to decorate your body with, whatever, you can find it on our website. That's just johnholt.media as well. That's linked down below. But until next week, guys, thank you so much for watching. Remember, the adventure lives on.